Hi there, this is Kevin Patton. I'd like to spend a few minutes with you sharing some ideas for moving our on-campus courses quickly to a remote learning environment. Before I share my first idea, I just want to clarify that not only do I have experience in teaching on campus, then moving to remote education, I also teach in a program that trains teaching faculty in ways to effectively teach both online and face-to-face. Because of this mentoring, for at least the past 8 years, I've been paying attention to what faculty find that works and what doesn't work so well. Besides that, because I've been covering this developing phenomenon of pandemic teaching in my podcast, I've been paying close attention to what other experts are saying about the best steps we should take right now. And it turns out that, and I'm as surprised as anybody about this, what the experts are saying aligns very closely with what we've been teaching in our Happy program and what I've been sharing in my podcast. So I have some broad, sweeping ideas and very simple ideas for us to consider that distills what I've been learning. A lot of this has already been said by many of my colleagues in various venues, and I'm just kind of pulling this all together. And we need to keep in mind that many of these ideas go against what our gut is telling us. They're not only different from what we do in our on-campus courses, they're just, crazy sounding. So I'm asking you to join me in suspending disbelief and give these ideas a chance. My first point is, don't just pick up your course and move the whole thing to online. My first reaction when I first started considering teaching online was to do what I do in the classroom, especially in the lecture part of the course, and simply translate that into digital format, into video. But what I found out, actually what my students found out, and let me have it with both barrels, is that is boring, which means it's hard to engage students, which means I lose some students, which means I eventually lose most students. All those amazing recorded lectures just sat there out in the ether, not being listened to. And now I see all these teachers all over the globe doing that very thing that I found not to work very well. And what's even more surprising, we already know that's not the best way to teach online, and yet our campus tech people are giving us workshops on how to do that. Now, I'm not saying don't do video lectures. I'm saying don't do the same lectures. The first step is starting with your learning outcomes or course objectives. Identify only those concepts that students really must have. I mean, really must be taking out of the course with them when they leave. When we do that, we have to remember that our course is not their only course or their only learning experience. They cannot and will not learn all there is for them to know about our particular discipline or our particular focused area of our discipline from only our course. So we need to get over ourselves and realize that our course isn't as important as we think it is, which turns out to be a great relief when we truly embrace that idea. So I guess the pressure's off, right? Well, not exactly, but it does reduce the pressure a lot when we embrace that idea of not having to cover every detail. Then we need to take just those core ideas and trim everything else away from all those beautiful lectures we've created over the course of years. Then go in again and really do some more trimming, because it's never enough trimming the first time. And then do it again and again until we have, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 1/3 or less of what we had before. The next step is to chunk those lectures into pieces that are no longer than about 18 minutes. Because when working remotely, students they're just going to turn out if they're any longer than about 18 minutes. Now, I've been using the analogy of being forced to leave your course home, and you can only take what fits in the back of your car, not the entire contents of your course home. What's essential? What is it that must be saved during this emergency? Just take that and nothing more. We're heading off to teach in a tent for a while. I know that a lot of us have already tried to rebuild that entire course remotely. And if that's working for you, great. But if not, it's not too late to go back in and start throwing things out. I think it'll work better for you and for your students when you do that. Which leads me to my next point, which is the world is different now. We're assuming that if our students signed up for a class that meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 11:20, that we should be meeting with them on Zoom or whatever every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11:20. They already had that time blocked off, right? Well, yeah, but things are not as they were. Our students may be living in a different place. Their responsibilities may have changed. There's all these people with them who not only won't go outside and let them concentrate, but they're scrambling around trying to do their own thing. Work and family schedules have changed. I have a lot of returning learners, and they're now trying to homeschool their kids and maybe do their jobs at home during different hours than they were before. And all of us are under stress right now. A lot more stress than we probably realize consciously. So both we and our students need some slack here. We need to reduce their load and our load and make our course lighter than we thought that it could be. I'm thinking we should abandon regular course meetings, or at least trim them way back and make them brief, maybe just hitting the pain points, and do things as asynchronously as possible. So there's much less pressure on everyone to be dusted off and ready to go at specific times. I've found that the more I get away from my course being about me spouting off what I've learned and all my brilliant insights, and get closer to stepping back and simply coaching and supporting students as they do their own learning, it all works way better than it ever did in the olden days. That supporting thing leads me to my next point. Remote teaching is upside down and inside out. Something I've learned in moving from on-campus to remote teaching is that everything needs to be flipped if it's going to work. That is the classic model of going in a classroom and lecturing 2 or 3 times a week, then sending students out to learn, and then giving them an occasional test to see whether they did learn anything, just doesn't translate well to remote learning, which is naturally more independent and student-focused than that classic model. What I do now is mainly about getting students started, then giving them things that help them learn. It may be reviewing and retrieval practice. It may be projects like case studies, or even just reading assignments with reflections. There are all kinds of possibilities. But my role is to step back and just be there to help them over the humps. Once I got it out of my head that teaching has to be me pouring my knowledge into their heads, then my online teaching started to become a lot more effective. That being there for them leads me to my next point, which is we need to be present to students. There is so much research out there that shows us that our connection to our students is way more effective in promoting their success in learning than all the other stuff that we do in our courses. We think it's all about our clear explanations and wonderful media presentations, but much more of it is about how students feel connected to us and by extension connected to the ideas that we're teaching them. So yeah, I think we should hold back a bit on the scheduled mandatory meetings and be more flexible. but we should also be clearly visible and available in our courses. That means we have to have a profile picture in our learning management system. We should have occasional, very brief video messages to introduce a new topic or new activity, or just to check in. And little things like including our photo, like I do in this slide, or like I'm doing in the little video talking head in the corner, which I'm doing with Camtasia, by the way, can go a long, long way in helping our students feel connected to us. But most importantly, every communication we have, whether broadcast to the whole class or directed to just one student, ought to be overtly supportive. You and I are empathetic and compassionate teachers, I think. Otherwise, we wouldn't be drawn to presentations that help us be the best that we can be for our students. But it took me a long time as a teacher to learn that students may not pick up on that unless I put some effort into actually telling them that I care and that I want to help them succeed. I always just assumed they knew that. When I found out that they don't automatically pick up on that, and started telling them nearly every day that I love helping them get past their obstacles in learning, I saw a big change in how connected my students seemed. The thing is, that's hard enough to do on campus. It's way harder in a remote learning environment. We really have to put some effort into getting that message out that we care and that we're there for them. Now, switching gears a bit to a more practical how-to suggestion, let me suggest this. It's my simple formula or simple recipe for remote teaching. First, you probably have an assigned textbook. Whether you do or not, or whether your students actually bought the book or not, doesn't really matter, because right now VitalSource, which is a big distributor of college e-texts, is giving away access to them free, at least the textbooks from the major publishers. Even some of the smaller textbook publishers are doing this sort of thing. So we and our students have this wonderful teaching and learning resource, which is meant to be used independently, at home, and sitting there right in front of us. It's the textbook. As several of you listening right now can attest, a lot of work goes into making textbooks as effective for learning as they can be. So hey, why not? Let's use them. Why not first take that stripped down list of objectives or intended learning outcomes and construct a set or frame of distinct learning modules? Each module has a reading assignment and an online test with randomized question sets that allow the student to take multiple attempts so that they can use them to learn the material from the reading. These are open book formative tests that allow students to work their way to mastery, unlike our usual summative tests that assume they've already mastered it all. In each module, we can have a handful of recorded mini lectures that walk students through the concepts that we know from our experience that they're going to have trouble with. Maybe even some optional live sessions to ask questions. Period. That's it. Book, formative tests, and a few short video clips or meetings. That's all. I told you, it's a simple recipe, right? Now, I know it's going to feel like you're not doing enough, but I really believe the simple approach is the best. For more about this simple approach to pandemic teaching, I have a new ebook that's still in the rollout stage, so it's becoming available in more and more distribution channels. It's called Pandemic Teaching, and it's free to download in most of those channels. Please take a look at it and pass it around freely. It's not discipline specific, and it's a swift, easy read, so feel free to pass it along to your friends outside your department or your school's teaching and learning center. Hey, I'll see you down the road.